Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mile High Game Guys Board Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And this is another Friday review episode. So you get to hear us talk about a game.
As per usual.
Yes.
As is tradition.
On Fridays, anyway. Wednesdays, you might hear us talk about a game. You might hear us talk about a lot of things.
We might
that are
even
not
talk about
game.
the same things twice.
Yes.
Anyhow,
So we can't have nice things.
this week we are going to be reviewing Pioneer Days. This is a 2017 release from designer Matthew Dunstan, art by Gael Longhini and Sergi Marcet, published by Tasty Minstrel Games. It plays 2 to 4 players and takes 45 to 60 minutes. Before Zach gets to his rules rundown, a brief disclaimer. This is a review copy that was provided to us by said publisher, Tasty Minstrel Games.
That is correct.
Zach, do you have a rules breakdown of Pioneer Days ready for us?
Yes, I do. In Oregon Trail, Pioneer Days, you are trying to get the best wagon gang.
Wagon gang?
That's what I put. Like
Okay.
group, but not like a bad gang, a good gang.
Okay.
Like I would say like It's Always Sunny gang, but that's a bad gang.
Yeah, that's
That's
the
a
wrong
bad example.
gang.
Yeah.
But we know what you mean.
Yes. And each day you roll dice and then draft them in turn order. You can do the main action to gain resources or equipment, gain silver, or hire townsfolk to gain new abilities. Whatever die you did not take moves the corresponding disaster track up. These tracks include storms, raids, famine, and disease. With the black die, you move all the tracks up, so take care. At the end of each week, once all the dice are used, you can then try and give resources to gain favors from the town. After 4 weeks, you will total up favors, gold nuggets, and victory points from townsfolk, and whoever has the most wins.
Indeed. So that is Pioneer Days. Yeah, basically Oregon Trail, but an actual
Game.
game. So initial thoughts going into this game. Let's start with you, Zach. So we got this game sent to us from Tasty Minstrel.
Mhm.
They said they were looking for reviewers in an email. We were like, hey, sure, why not? They sent it to us, and then I handed it off to you and Jeff because I was going out of town, and
Mhm.
you played it at, I believe, one of our game nights.
Yes.
Zuni Street.
So yeah, so what were your thoughts going into that?
Well, I remember I first saw it. Jeff had brought it up. I forget in what context. Like, I remember seeing pictures of it and looking at the game. I think it was when they were asking for like review copies,
Yeah.
right?
And there was selection, and it was kind of like the one on there that we were like, let's this one.
Yeah. From looking at it, I was like, oh, that's not, I like the art just from like the cover and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, it's about dice drafting and stuff like that. Oh, this could be interesting. So I was definitely vaguely positive going in, especially once we actually opened it up. And I was like, oh man, a lot of these components are nice. And then like setting it up, we're like, oh shit, all this stuff fits together. It definitely gave a good impression when it was first set up, because we're like, it's always nice when you have like different things, the art of them matches depending on where they are and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So
Right on. Jeff, what about you? What were your initial impressions kind of going into this game?
I didn't know much about the game. The rule book was pretty thin when I started learning it, but concise, which was nice.
but this is also one of the games where Jeff actually taught us, or
Yeah.
taught me, and then I taught Adrian.
Yeah.
But yeah. Jeff was the rule learner this time.
Yes.
Which is rare.
Rare, yes.
Because most of you own the other games.
Yes.
Or get them sent to your houses.
True.
And I agree with Zach. Like all the parts fit together. The art kind of really matched on a lot of different spots. And all the components were nice straight out of the box. So it had a good quality to it right from the get go.
Mhm.
For me, my first impressions begin with, again, the email where they were asking about reviews, and Jeff and Zach had actually heard of it before and had some interest in it. They mentioned it was dice drafting, which, I famously don't care for dice, but drafting is one of the few ways that I actually do enjoy dice in a game.
Because it's not a resolve. It's you roll them and then you get to choose your actions from there.
Correct. Which is functionally the same as flipping a deck of cards in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I was intrigued by it there. With a listed playing time of 45 to 60 minutes, I wasn't expecting, a very heavy game, but it seemed, looking it over, hearing them talk a little bit about it, that it would be kind of interesting. Then it arrived, and I opened and punched and organized it and everything, and I was immediately solidly impressed with the components that we'll get to here in a second. and then heard from both of you that you actually enjoyed your play of it while I was gone. And so then I was kind of looking forward to actually getting a chance to give it a shot. Some of the things you talked about from your first play made me think that it was one that I would actually enjoy and that would potentially be a good fit for game night in terms of like the amount of time it takes to play, kind of how it plays, how easy it is to teach, things like that. So I was pretty optimistic going into my first play of it.
Nice.
So let's talk about those components. There is a fair amount of stuff in the game.
Yeah. Let's talk about the good stuff first.
Yes. Yes, because there is good and there is bad. So I would say that component quality is good.
Yes.
all the way around. Like the cards are solid cards. Like they're not fraying or wearing after several plays. The wooden bits are all solid. They're all shaped wooden pieces. The ones that are wooden. There's a bunch of cardboard tokens. They all punched out finer, good thick cardboard.
Very thick cardboard components.
Yeah.
Like
Not
a third more than you would expect.
Yeah, not like Manhattan Project, but still.
No, not quite that chunky.
It's close. They're at least playing the same sport. But yeah.
Minor leagues and majors.
Yes, yes.
There's plenty of most of the components. We did actually finally in our most recent game run into a situation where we almost ran out of favors, which are one of the main victory point chips in the game.
But it does say in the rules, it's like
they're all limitless. Yeah. So just find a substitute.
Which a lot of other games do that same sort of thing. So
even like the player boards are big, thick cardboard boards. The wagons, like most everything that you're playing with is either thick cardboard, wood, or solid like cards. But even those, you're not like shuffling decks except for during setup.
Yep.
And you're not really ever handling your cards. You're like, I'm taking it from this slot here and putting it down by my wagons, and that's all you're doing with the cards.
And it has slots in it, and like it has slots for everything. And I remember like it's like for each of the slots like 1 gold token or 2 wood, and you're like oh, that feels weird. But then like when you put the 2 wood together, it's the same size as the other ones, and it's like okay, that makes sense now.
When you say slots, there's marked spaces on the cardboard.
That's what I mean.
They're not recessed or anything, just to be clear. This isn't Scythe here.
No.
Extra thick, not 2 layers.
Yes. And it looks like the wagon connects to the board in the sense that like art-wise, it looks
art
like
is very continuous.
Yeah, the play is continuous, and you can put multiple on, and it has that same style, which I think looks really nice.
Yes. Speaking of the art, it's got a very cartoony art, but I like it. It's well done. I'm not very familiar, at least not by just seeing the names of either Guile or Sergei. Guile and Sergei. Guile?
I think.
Yeah. We'll just continue to butcher their names in new and interesting ways for the next 5 minutes.
Indeed.
But I'm not familiar with either of them right out the gate.
Manhattan Project.
Oh.
Yeah.
For which one?
Sergei.
Oh, okay. Oh.
And then it looks like Giel or Guile. This is his first.
Okay. I definitely don't get a Manhattan Project vibe from the art. It's definitely more lighthearted and cartoonish than Manhattan Project.
And I think they did a good job with all of the townsfolk and stuff like that, and the different favored cards. Like they have different backgrounds, but they still match with where they go to make it feels organic.
Yes,
the art feels continuously organic. So
I would agree.
Yeah.
So with most of that out of the way, singing the praises.
Well, and then I think the dice are good too. I think they're good quality dice. They're etched and
they're etched with unique faces.
Yes.
So they are custom dice for this game.
And the colors of the dice, you couldn't confuse like even the blue with the black.
Certainly not for us.
Yes, that's true.
Because we're not vision impaired, any of the three of us.
That is correct.
I can't necessarily say, like, I feel like they probably have avoided any of the more common color blindness issues. Like, the blue and green are I think, different enough that but I'm not super familiar with that.
Yeah, we don't know based on, but for not color blindness, like, because there's still, for every, because
there are games that we can't tell them apart, and it's like, well, you've done fucked up. This is not one of those. For as long as you don't have a vision impairment, the dice are very clearly discernible.
Yeah.
If only other things were as clearly discernible. It comes with 2 nice cloth bags for drawing tokens out of. That's also very good.
Cattle meeples.
Yep.
So the things that are wood are pretty much all shaped wood, which is really nice.
A mostly useless first player token.
That is also very true.
Yes, because it turns out you can just pass the dice bag as the first player marker.
Yeah.
until Jeff sets it down in front of me instead of passing it to Zach, and then I pick it up and think it's my turn.
Yeah.
Because that'll happen.
That's your fault.
That's not necessarily a failing of the game.
That's a failing of Adrian.
Yes.
As a person.
Yes. I'm atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to talk about one of the things from a component standpoint that super, super pisses me off.
I mean, yes.
Like it started as a minor annoyance, and every time I play it, it just makes me angrier. There are 4 scoring tokens for the players. Wagons.
Wooden wagons.
They're shaped. They're nice wooden pieces. They are white, yellowish brown, brown, and dark brown.
It's a reddish brown.
I would, a reddish brown,
a dark brown,
a kind of ochre brown, a dark brown, and like a cream.
Yeah, they're not your standard color. I think they were trying to go with the rustic color, but it didn't work well, especially because you got to remember which one are yours, because that's the only way to represent who is each person.
There's nothing else. Like the colors bother me because they're, especially I think that the 3 variations of brown are similar enough. The dark, like there's the middle one, and so it's like that's kind of similar to the top one and the other. The cream at least does stand out as its own.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to save some dye money because like the brown is the same as the cattle, the red is the same as the raid token, the like ochre brown is the same as the like famine token.
Which when we were first setting it up, before we realized that those circles were for the disaster tracks, we were like,
these are our player markers.
Yeah, these are our player markers, but there's only a couple of them, and then there's we see blue and green, but there are no blue and green wagons. And then we were like, oh, these are for the disaster ones.
Yeah.
So I don't care for the colors, but I could understand, especially from a cost saving and like match other things.
Yeah.
If they'd included just like a fucking cube, a disc, a something that matched those 2 colors, so that I could take the cream wagon and put it on the score track, and then the cream marker and put it in front of me.
Yes.
So I'd be like, I'm that color.
Yes, 100% on that.
And especially again for some of those other ones, like I don't think any of them, you don't mistake them, but because they aren't colors you're used to, you might forget which one you are.
Yeah.
It just it's such a minor thing, and it's like 4 more pieces.
Yes.
4 more pieces in a game that has otherwise great components. They clearly didn't skimp on components. So just 4 more pieces, please. But yeah, so it's unfortunate that there is like one major component gripe. I mean, so for some people it might be really minor. They might be like, "You guys are stupid and this is overblown." It feels glaringly out of place for me. Having it that way.
No, it was something we all agreed on that we're like, this is lacking.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to touch on for art, components, graphic design, that kind of thing?
I think it's nice. I do like that. So all the equipment is just icon based, but they have on each of the characters, they have an equipment list that tells you what every equipment does.
Yes.
Or what all the symbols mean. So when looking at the equipment, you can just always reference your equipment list to make sure you know what it is. It's not like a common one or only in the back of the book or something like that.
True.
So.
And I don't feel like any of them are that hard to understand once you
get it. Yes.
Yeah, they make sense.
The iconography makes sense. Yeah.
Right on. Well, let's move on then from components over into rules and rules explanation. So let's start this one off in a new and exciting turn. Jeff, you learned this game and taught it to us. How did you think the rule book was for a first-time player sitting down, opening it up, and trying to learn how to play?
And I learned this entirely out of the rule book. I didn't go online or watch any videos. And I think it worked really great. It was actually a pretty decent rule book, which seems rare these days.
It's unfortunately rare.
The setup was super simple. Each phase mechanically was really laid out there. I guess the only slightly confusing thing is like the end of week and beginning of week stuff. Like it teaches you all the stuff that you do at the end at the beginning, because that's when it technically happens during the round.
Yeah.
So you kind of learn a bunch of out of context stuff at the very beginning, but that's kind of all. That's just the mechanics of the game.
Yes.
Setup was super simple. It's like each set of dice plus 1 for the amount of players, and then you're just picking.
Which is on the the board too. It tells you on set. Not like it's not something you have to technically remember, although it's easy enough to do. On the board, it says literally, you're playing with 3 players, you use 4 dice. You're playing with 4 players, you use 5 dice of each color. So
yeah, because you're making sets. And then you just grab as many out of there as you have players, and roll away, and you'll just pick and choose like your different sections. There's those 6 different like main spots. I don't think we really had any confusion at all learning that fairly quickly. You can get the item, you can get the money, or you can get the person that's underneath. One thing we haven't really touched on at all yet is during setup, there's 5 different decks of townsfolk.
A through E.
Yes.
So.
Yep. And you choose 2, you shuffle them together, and that's the townsfolk that you have for the game. As they go up in letter, they kind of go up in complexity and a little bit of interactivity in there.
Yeah.
It says to start off with A and B, and they definitely feel like the most basic, straightforward ones.
There was
when you get to D and E, it gets a little bit more, like there's a little bit more text on there, or it's like, how does this work in this little instance? And unfortunately, the rulebook does not have doesn't have any explanation of cards.
No,
which
there's no card glossary or card reference or anything like that.
Which kept the rulebook thin, but we definitely a couple times were like
we had to go look online, and the BGG forum posts from like the designer was like, "Oh, I meant it as this, and this. Sorry, it just didn't come through like that."
Yeah, and there was at least one when we played our most recent game that was like almost a straight misprint. Like the way it was worded versus the way it actually was. He was like, "Yeah, no, it's supposed to be this."
Yeah.
But it definitely, if you play it as is on the card, that's like, not what he meant.
Was it the one where it's like, you must give them a medicine, and if you do so...
No, because that one, I mean, it does say must.
Yeah, it's...
But it had a weird wording of like, then must if they do that...
Which I guess is like, if you don't have one.
Yeah, if they could do that, I think would be like slightly better or something like that. But yeah, it wasn't the resource one, was it?
It might have been.
No,
I don't know.
They had some of them used vague words that you're like, what's a resource?
What's a token?
That was a big problem because there was a card that Zach got that was like, choose one each of 2 different resources. And then
what's a resource?
And in the rule book, they reference resources a couple times, but they never tell you what is actually a resource.
Yeah.
So we had to go on BGG for them to be like, it's gold, tokens, cattle, wood, medicine.
Yeah, which basically, because gold, you draw it out of a bag, and there's like 1 to 3 different gold nuggets on each of those, and it's sort of hidden information. We're like, does that count or not? Like we were trying to figure out, and does money count? And it was just like,
and like money doesn't count.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't think we ran into really any problems.
No, our 2-player game went fairly quick.
Yeah, easy to learn. Just sort of the little mechanics in between that come up. Like at the very end of the game, all the disaster tracks starting to move up one more time, and then the game ends.
There's and then also in the last week you have 3 favors instead of 2, but that makes sense because you deal 9 cards to start out with face down, and so by that last one you end up just flipping like it has a space for that third one that you then flip over.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. And there's very few instances where it's just like, only in this instance does this happen.
Yeah.
It's fairly consistent week to week.
Which reminds me, speaking of the favor cards, another issue in the rules. So I think the rules are great for learning the base of the game.
Yeah.
It's terrible for nuance.
Yes. It's not the glossary. Like it's basically, this is like for Fantasy Flight, they do the learn the play and then the rules glossary.
This is the learn to play.
This is the learn to play part.
But then even thinner than that.
Yes.
But those cards for things you're satisfying for the town, it says nowhere in the book does it tell you that you could solve those in whatever order you choose.
How the book or how the rules say is that in order you do this, but that's like in player order.
Well, it's also in order. It's you do cattle scoring.
Yeah.
Then you do cards that have end of week, and then you do.
No, I understand, but it says for the favors for the towns, it says in order resolve each of these, but you get to do like in turn order.
Not actually in card order.
Yeah, it doesn't. I
have literally the rule book right here.
Does it say what I'm saying?
Which part is it under? End of week, visiting a town. At the end of the day, when the dice bag is empty, the week ends, you arrive at the town where you do the following 3 things in order. Resolve any card effects that take place at the end of the week. Gain 1 victory point for cattle you have. Satisfy the needs of the face-up town cards in order to earn favors.
In order to earn favors. That's what I was misreading.
Yeah.
So I was just misreading it, but I was correct in my misreading.
Yeah, you read it like with a
In order
with
with
comma.
a comma. Yeah.
So there's some minor.
There's
Just-
vagueness in the rule
Yeah.
book, which luckily BGG was super easy. Like you just Googled it and then it was like the first thing that came up
Yeah.
on BGG. It was
Yeah.
like, this is what I meant. And it's like, okay, which thank God that we like, at least we know
Mhm.
to use that, but it could be confusing for some people because there's a specific instance which he specifically talks about where it was like one was money, like one was like straight money to favors, the other one was turn stuff in for favors and money, and it was like, can you use that money from that second one to then turn it into the other favor?
Yes.
And you can't and you can.
Yeah.
But we weren't, because they were in opposite. Like the first one was just the
It's like,
money.
are we doing them in order? What order? Does it matter?
Yes.
And it does not. It does not matter.
No.
Yeah. And thankfully, Seth Jaffe,
Mm-hmm.
who was the game's
Developer.
he has been very active in all of these threads, giving answers. But yeah, I wish the rules were a little bit clearer on their wording in some places. And then, man, I wish there was just a player, or not a player, a
Mhm.
townsfolk reference page.
Yes.
I feel like that could have been one page front and back, added into this already thin rule book.
Mhm.
Wouldn't have been much. That just clarifies a little bit on those.
Yeah, especially because some of the later townsfolk deck are like especially like E is like it's 2 cards, but with each of the different die faces is
Yeah.
basically what it is. So that's really easy. Like some of those would be a lot easier to clarify, and it wouldn't take up that much space. But
otherwise, everything's pretty straightforward.
yes,
Yeah.
and I when I taught you, Adrian, it was once I played that game once, I was able to teach you everything.
Yeah, I could 100% teach the game. The only reason I'd need the rule book, or more likely a quick Google search, would be for nuance that,
Mhm.
may or may not actually ever come up
Yes.
in any given situation. And that's the case for basically every game.
Only other hook in there was the equipment. If you take a die with that facing and that equipment has that little wood or medicine or whatever on it, that's what triggers your equipment.
Yep.
And just realizing that you need that little symbol to make the equipment work for the most part.
Yes.
Especially because it can be, it's just wood or medicine and mining on the 3 different symbols that you can get on the equipments.
No, you can get all 6.
You can
of
get
the
one for
symbols.
cattle too.
Oh, and cattle. Was there ever an equipment? I don't know if there was ever an equipment one.
There wasn't one for Joker,
Yeah, there wasn't a wild.
Yeah,
but
There
there
might
wasn't
not.
one for equipment. Yeah.
Yes.
really?
But it's all the other 4 ones.
Yep.
Okay,
Some would say the resources you could get
Yep.
in the game.
Exactly.
that makes sense.
Yeah. When you get resources, you get other resources. Yeah.
But yeah, some minor complaints in there. Nothing I would say game breaking.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to touch on for rules or rules explanation before we roll into gameplay?
Not really. I think how the dice worked was very straightforward, and it's because there's one more than everybody. It was like whichever one's left. That's like it was really easy to tell people how the disasters moved up and how they worked. Because on the board it tells you exactly what they do and what you need. So there was no confusion on that. Any mistakes on that were purely the player's fault.
Mhm.
Of, oh God, I didn't realize I needed. I didn't realize that Storm was this close, and I have 5 wood, or I have 5 wagons, so I'm fucked if Storm comes.
Right. Cool. Well, let's move on then into gameplay.
Yeah.
And talk about the stuff that matters, the stuff we really care about.
Mhm.
So we've played this game, all of us at 3 and 4 players.
Yes, I've played it at all 3 counts.
Oh,
2,
that's right.
3,
Because you
and
guys'
4.
first game was a 2-player game. That's
Jeff
right.
has also played. No, you've only played.
I didn't play with 4.
You didn't play with 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've each, so Zach's done all of them, and then Jeff hasn't done 4. I haven't done 2.
Yeah.
But we've played it a number of times at least different player counts.
Yes.
So we have some experience with how it scales and moves along, so we'll be able to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But the gameplay, I mean, is this isn't a heavy game. It's definitely on the lighter side of medium.
It's on the light. I would say a slightly light medium. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I'd say it's definitely medium. It's not a
Yes.
light game.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's on that lighter side.
Yeah.
It-
I think when I looked, it was like 2.8 out of 5, and I would agree with that.
Yes, that is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely far-reaching implications for. It's not like there's a lot of tactical decisions in here, but there's definitely strategies that you can focus on.
Yes. And there are definitely multiple ways to like
Exactly.
win and things like that are actually all very valid
Yeah.
ways to progress.
And there's like meaningful decisions on not just what you choose, but denying people and what die you like, especially like if you're the first person to roll, it's like, yes, you get your best, you get the best choice. But when you're the last person to choose, you're choosing what disaster is going to go up. So you can be like, if it's a choice between famine, which hurts you based on cattle, and then storm, which hurts you based on wagons, you're like, I have wood, so I don't care if storm goes off, but I have a bunch of cattle and I don't want famine to happen because I don't have that much money. It makes you go, I really want like the storm die, but I don't want cattle to go off.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of those decisions to make. And I am happy that there is you can just pay 3 money to flip a die to whatever you want. So there's bad rolls are mitigatable, assuming you have the money for it, which 3 money is not that hard to get in this game.
Right. And there's very few times I feel like there's truly bad rolls.
Yes.
Like there's if you really want to do something.
I mean, I feel 3 equipment at the end of the game was bad.
Yeah. I mean,
no, but I would agree with you too that the only time it felt like you had bad rolls is if you were at the end of the end of everybody choosing.
Yes. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, the things I wanted to do are gone. But then at least it is as long as you've got a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Which, as you mentioned, not hard to get 3 gold or 3 silver.
Yes. I do like that you can't like take first player or anything like that. It just constantly rotates. So it's like, oh, I have a bad choice now, but I'm going to get a better choice in the next turn, and then it slowly goes from there. It's constantly changing, and you're doing it 20 times throughout the game, so everybody is going to have that point where they're like, I have the best choice or I have the worst choice.
Yeah.
I like that it's constantly changing like that.
Yeah.
Have we talked about the variable player powers at all?
No, we have not done that yet. So technically it says like, when you're beginning, everybody used the standard pioneer, which is everything is the same.
Nope.
Don't do
Boring.
that. But I do like that it has it on each. It's double sided because it has the standard pioneer for the person or their actual ability, and so it's not like it doesn't take up extra space.
Right.
But what's nice is that not only does everybody have their own ability, but everybody has their own starting equipment too. So like the person who deals with cattle, they have more cattle than someone who doesn't give a shit about cattle.
Right.
And some people, if you have a pretty powerful ability, sometimes you only start with a small wagon instead of a large wagon.
Yeah, or you start with, like maybe just 1 wood and 1 medicine and like a gold token that you randomly draw from the bag, nothing else.
Yeah.
I feel like some of the player powers are definitely more like there's definitely ones that are better.
There are definitely some that are more straightforward.
Yeah,
than the other ones. Because there's one that Adrian played last time was as long as you fulfill a favor, you get an extra favor. Or you as long as you fulfill one of the townsfolk's needs,
then
you get an extra favor. So it was really like, because if you're not doing that, then you are going to fail the game.
Yeah.
But basically, it just means like you start with 8 more points than everybody else, so to speak, by the end of the game.
Yeah, and it's a limit of 1 extra per round. And you only have to satisfy 1 of the needs. You don't have to satisfy all 2 or at the end all 3.
Yeah.
So it's. And that's not hard to do.
No.
So they made that one a very straightforward, like, here's an easy 8 points.
Yeah.
Like, basically, my character started with a bonus 8 points.
Whereas, like, there was the patriarch who was like, he can hold a bunch of extra stuff in his wagon. It's like, it's nice because then you're not fighting for wagon space as much as other people. But because of that, you start with a small wagon instead of a large. But if you end up just not having much stuff in your wagon, then you're sort of wasting that power.
Right.
So it's like you have to focus on getting a lot of things. And there's ones about getting more gold that if you just don't end up getting that, then it's a lot easier for some of them to waste their potential than others. And there's definitely some that are more interactive, like because there's the gambler who gets you whenever you take a die, you can just reroll that die if you want and take a money. So you can always just be like, what's the die that everybody else wants? I'm just going to take that one. I don't give a shit what it is. Then I'm just going to roll. And then just whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because then especially you can always spend that 3. But even if somebody like Adrian really needs that medicine and Jeff and I take those medicine die, like I was saying before, the fact that you can spend 3 money, you're always able to get medicine if you need it.
Yes.
Assuming you have the money for it, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a give and take with some of them, but I think, like we're saying, just some of them are easier to figure to use to their most potential versus others.
Yeah.
But they all feel unique. Like none of them were like, oh, this is just sort of a shittier version of this one. They were all doing different things, which I liked.
Yeah.
What did you think of the townsfolk? Because I know you played with both of you guys played with AB and then also with CD. So you played with different versions of them, basically.
Depends on what order they come out in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big shuffled deck. Some of them are clearly way better if you get earlier. That will be just like there's no reason to even take that after like round 2.
Yeah. And some of them, I mean, I think is what I was thinking of more when I thought there were some that are objectively better than others. There's definitely times you could tell when ones come out that aren't very good and just everybody ignores them until they get wiped at the end of a week and replaced. I like how typically there's 2 parts to the cards. There's what they do, like their action when you select them, which are variations of like there's immediate ones that have like a little bell symbol, ones that have an infinite sign are like just constantly in effect, and then there's one that have like little clockwork gears that are like
when you get a cattle, get a money or something.
When certain things happen, it triggers. But then below that, they have a victory point modifier, like get 1 victory point for every cattle, get 2 victory points for every big wagon, 1 for every small, things like that.
And they sort of make sense to whatever the ability is.
And that's what I was just going to say. Those paired well together. So like if you get one that's going to give you cows, then it probably has you get cattle scoring at the end. If you have one that lets you rummage around for gold, you probably have something that modifies your gold scoring at the end.
And then if you get a couple of them, if you have a couple that have cattle, then it's like each cattle is worth, not only is it worth points throughout the game, because at the end of each week, you get to, however many cattle you have, you get a victory point for each. But then each cattle at the end of the game that you are able to keep is worth 2 or 3 victory points each. So it definitely pays to then stack on those certain things.
Yeah.
But then it becomes super important to keep those people alive. And then you're like, I need to make sure I fucking have medicine ready for them.
Yeah, and that's where it worked really well for me in our last game. I did very well the last game we played of this. But at the end of the game, I finished with 6 cows. And I had 2 of my 3 townsfolk were plus 1 point for cows. So I got at the end of the week 6 points for my cows. And then at the final scoring, I got 12 more points for my cows. That's a lot of points.
Yeah. Or like for me, I had 2 people that were plus 1 for each gold token. And so that means instead of the tokens being worth 1 to 3 points, they were each worth 3 to 5 points. And so this game definitely rewards when you are able to focus on 1 or 2 things, because it just makes it that much easier to get points. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The silence was like, oh,
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But it, like I was saying, it also means that you have to keep those things fine. Like, if you have people that require cattle, and then you have cattle, that means you have to have enough money for famine, and you have to have enough medicine to keep those people alive.
Yeah, and because
and then because of that, there are certain things where you're like, I'd want to get this other equipment that helps me, or I want to get these other cards, but I can't because I have to make sure that they are okay.
Yeah,
and so there is a give and take. There is a cost to high victory points when you focus on some of these things.
Correct. Plus, there's the fact that all of this is open information.
Exactly.
So the other players can be like, holy shit, Adrian's got a 6 cow wagon train. Let's not take any of the famine dice whenever possible. Yeah.
Or try and make it to where raid and then famine happen on the same turn, because it happens from top to bottom. So you lose half your money and then you have to pay for the cattle,
which could potentially be real painful.
Exactly. And so sometimes you're like, that's where being that last person, you're like, oh, I get to choose what's going to happen. And so Adrian, like, he was like, I have to make sure no black dice make it to the end, because Jeff and I,
we're just going to leave it.
We're just going to leave it because we didn't have any cattle
or enough money to really worry about.
I didn't have that much money, but Jeff had a really easy way to get money. So he was like, I don't care if I lose half. I just get it 1 die and I have it all back.
Yep.
So Adrian had to make a conscious effort to sometimes take suboptimal dice to make sure that he didn't get fucked over by it.
Which is, a good measure of a good dice drafting game.
Yes.
Choices are important.
Yeah. I think you feel like all the dice you take are important.
Did you guys feel that changed at all with player counts? That it was more important in more players because there's more of each die, and so like
in a higher player counts, you just get more stuff happening.
Yeah, I think with more players, you have a higher chance of being able to fuck over somebody. That more people focusing on things like raid may hurt one person, but not like you have a higher chance of raid hurting somebody or famine hurting somebody. That you can take that into effect. You take that into account. But with that, you had more choices with more people, so being first was a lot nicer.
Yeah,
because you're like, I have 5 dice to choose from. I'm probably going to be able to get the thing that I want to get. But otherwise, I mean, the only other thing I say would be time, because it literally, like, it just, people are doing more dice. There's more dice in the game, even though it's the same amount of turns. Instead of 2 people dealing with dice, it's 4 people, so it adds to the game.
Yeah.
So it definitely, like, the 45 to 75 minutes, the 45 is definitely for the 2-player, the 75 is definitely for the 4-player. But I also think that because the turns in and of themselves are very simple, you just take a die and you just do that action and that's it. It, like, the game doesn't lend itself to much AP, I think, in that regard. Except for certain things, you definitely could see it, but I felt like each turn it was relatively simple for most people.
Yeah,
I would say near the end, or when there were a lot of disasters coming up, or when it became at the end of the week when you were trying to make sure you had everything for the favors. That's when people are like, "Oh, I need to make sure to do this and like that." But I felt it didn't take that. It didn't add that much time to it.
No, and thankfully in this game, you're never like, there's never so many different options.
Exactly. Yeah. That's yeah.
Even in a full 4-player game,
But if somebody takes the die that you want, you can still do that thing you want to do. You just have to pay for it.
Yeah, assuming you have money.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't have money, then you just know, oh, I can't do that. No need to worry. I just do something else instead.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think and that's why, I think it actually does kind of, I think they really nailed that like 45 to 60 minute mark. It's a pretty quick little game. There's not room for a lot of downtime or ridiculous over the top thinking to drag it on. And so you can really buzz through this, especially as people start to understand what they're doing and they get to where they aren't having to read every card or really pour over what each equipment that comes out each round does, things like that. Yeah. Oh, Jeff, you have anything else to chime in from gameplay that stands out to you?
I think that the townsfolk decks, like the earlier ones, have some more. Generally, all of them seem to be way more useful than some of the later decks. It seemed like there was always something in there that was viable at pretty much any time. We were wiping out the townsfolk deck pretty regularly in that first game with the A and B deck. Just because it was just more useful things
and more straightforward things, and then they're like more varied. Like that one had a lot more upgrade wagons or get new wagons,
or make immune to famine, immune to disease, immune to raid. Just like get free wood. It was. I found them generally more useful, which made them more interesting.
Fair enough.
The C and D did have some more interactivity. In regard, like, not super interactive, but there are definitely some that are like there was one that was like, add a bunch of equipment to the thing, then everybody gets an equipment starting with you, or you can steal cattle from people who have more than you.
Most of the interactivity was a positive. I get a slightly better benefit. Everybody else gets a slightly worse benefit. There's only like the one like you were just starting to say, which is part of how I ended up with 6 cattle.
Yeah.
But it was a situation where that card in particular was everybody who has more cattle than you take 1 cattle. So like I had 1. I waited for Zach and Jeff to have 2. And the spot where he was, I had a matching equipment that gave me a cow. So I took it. I took 1 from each of them, got a 3rd. So I basically got 3 cows in 1 turn.
Yeah. And that caused us to not be able to fulfill it
was a very powerful play.
It was a very powerful. Yeah.
That was one of the only cards in that entire, after the game we went through that D deck. That was one of the only cards in the D deck that I would say has a negative impact on other players. I agree they are all interactive, but most of them aren't negatively interactive.
I think there was only like 1 or maybe 2 more, but out of the 12, it was mostly positive interaction.
Which seems to kind of be the theme of this game. There's not a lot of dicking over other players.
That's pretty much that's mainly left the dice.
Yes. Which you could do by ignoring one. Like,
Mhm.
oh, you'd really benefit if I took away this famine right
Mhm.
here when you don't have the ability to feed all your cows.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna do it.
Just going to let you know that I'm not going to do
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Or there were times in the game we were playing at game night, Zach, where like David would point out to the one person we were teaching who was new to the group and didn't know the group
Mhm.
dynamics. It's like, just so you know, I guarantee you, if you don't take that black die, Zach's not going to take it.
Yep.
And they're all three going to go up
Mhm.
because he is the Lord of Chaos.
Well, and also I was like, I'm prepared. Like, it's especially if you're like, I'm prepared for these and other people aren't, you're totally willing to fuck it over, especially if it's like you have to spend medicine and like one of the favors is medicine. You're like, I can make it to where they don't get favor or to get those favors. It really can be big moves by like not taking certain dice.
Yes, definitely.
I will say we didn't play with the E deck.
No, we didn't
But-
quite get to it, but we looked through it.
And it was fairly simple. It's just like half of them were like you roll a die and then you eat like 2/3 or 1/3 chance. There we go.
2/6 would be
Yeah, I know.
literally.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. But yeah, it's a 1/3 chance of losing something, and then a third chance of getting something, and then another third chance of getting even more.
Yeah. So it'd be like you'd roll, and on 2 of the faces, you lose a money.
Mm-hmm.
On 2 of the faces, you gain 1 money. On the other 2, you gain 2 money.
Yeah,
So, and they were pretty much all like that. Like,
yeah.
substitute a different resource.
Exactly.
In place.
Yeah.
Add some randomness to the game
Yes.
if you needed more
Yes.
randomness.
And then the other side, the other cards were like, oh, whenever you take like whenever you would take a medicine die, put a medicine on this guy, and if there's exactly 2 at the end of the week, you get to get those medicine. Otherwise, you put them back. So it's like this one was just more of a. You're like, if you get this guy, then you want to get medicine at least twice, but no more than twice, and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And so
Yeah, the E deck of all of them, looking through them, seems the least interesting.
exactly,
for
I would
me
agree with
personally.
that too. Well, I liked the ones where it was like some of them were like at the beginning of each week, get wood or get medicine, or every time you get a gold, get an extra gold, and then choose from there, or upgrade or repair
Mhm.
wagons and stuff like that. I like they just had more variety in a lot of the other decks.
I agree. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to super chime in on this one. So I think we can move on to some final thoughts.
Indeed.
Sound good to you guys?
Yeah.
Right on. I'll start since I don't think I've started a final thoughts in a
No.
while. So I'll start this one. I have enjoyed my plays of Pioneer Days. It hasn't been one where I'm like, fuck this is stupid, I don't want to play. I'd be happy to play it again. I think that the short play time fits really well. Like, I think it will be one that's fine for game night. It's light enough that you can teach the kind of people who show up at our game night fairly regularly who are like, I've only ever played Catan like 3 times.
Or Munchkin.
Or Munchkin, or, we get a lot of people who are very new to the hobby at our game nights. I think this is one that would be super accessible in that regard. It's simple to teach it. Like, you can teach it as you set it up, basically. So it's not like you have to have a bunch of setup time and then a bunch of teach time, which drags on, and then people lose interest. You can just get right into it. You're rolling dice and you're having fun, and there's enough interaction even without the interactive townsfolk for people to kind of like joke around about like who's going to take what die and how are people going to screw you over somehow by selecting the wrong thing. That just makes for fun banter around the table. I think it's a fun game to play. I think that it does what I don't think it's trying to be some overly strategic, complex game. It's not some paragon of board gaming design. I think it's just fine. I think it does exactly what it sets out to. I wasn't blown away by it. I don't think it's something special. I'm not like, oh my God, go buy this game. You have to play Pioneer Days. If you come across it for a reasonable amount of money, and you're interested in it, grab it. If you have a chance to play it, sure, definitely give it a shot. Like, I'll play it more. I'll probably be taking it to game night, in my bag fairly regularly. But it's nothing special for me. I don't think anybody expected it to be. It's a little light for my personal tastes. But yeah, I thought it was fine. Jeff, how about you?
I like this game. It's a great game. Great components. Great art. Great flow of the game. You have your week by week, and then you have your end of the week, and then you go on to the next week. Keeping track of all the little storms and how to screw other people is an interesting interactive mechanic of the game. I would only play with certain decks, of course. there's a lot of strategy in those townsfolk as well. Yeah, it's generally a pretty good game. Not Adrian said most of it, but yeah, I like it a lot. I'm looking forward to playing it some more at pretty much any player count because it does go by so fast. I look forward to more Pioneer Days at some point in the future.
Bring us home, Zach.
I think the word I feel that, or the best exemplifies how I feel after, like, when thinking of this game is satisfied. Like, I played it and I'm like, I've enjoyed all my playthrough just like all of you guys. I think it plays good at all three different, like, as the only one that played with all three different player counts, I think they all went well. Obviously with more people it's going to be longer, but it didn't feel like it took too long. We only ended it early because we had to, because the place was closing, and game night games just take longer. That's just,
we started we started late on that one too.
I think there's a lot of interesting decisions in this game. I feel like it has a decent amount of interaction, but it's not specifically direct interaction. So if you like a lot of specifically like fuck you-esque things, like you'll
not
feel
the game for you.
It's not exactly the game for you, but as long as if you but also if you hate it when people mess with your shit, this game can also have some of that, but it's not. It's more of your own doing in a way, because it's nothing just comes out of nowhere.
Right. You see that disaster track building.
Exactly. Yes. I would also agree with what you were saying, Adrian, that not every game needs to aspire to be the best game ever. No. I think this one met my expectations, and I was like, this is a good game. I rated it, I think it was 7.5. It's like, it's a good to a very good game. I don't think it was trying to be the most amazing game. I feel like it hit exactly where it was trying to hit. I would also play this game again, and I definitely think it's a great dice drafting game. I think if you like dice drafting, definitely look into this game.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
But I think that even like people that don't like randomness, I feel like
it's not overly random.
Exactly. It's only like, and there's enough mitigation.
100%.
That's a better word.
Yes, that is a better word.
So there's enough mitigation. I'm trying to say what I said, but I couldn't say it.
Mitigatableness.
Yeah. There's enough mitigation to solve any overly bad rolls or whatever it is, that I feel that there's enough tactical decisions, but also enough strategic decisions. You can have a long-term strategy while still pivoting to deal with short-term threats and stuff like that, or short-term, like it's like, oh, I have to change it based on what the needs of the town are, or that the disasters are coming up, but you can still have your overall goal. And I don't like getting hit by disasters isn't life-ruining in this game.
No,
but you still feel that if you're unprepared.
Well, Jeff, how did you feel about getting hit with
he knew that was coming though. He made that choice of getting more wagons when he knew he had no wood for it,
and there was no way I could get more wood.
Exactly. So it's just like, this is my life. This is my lot in life. I'm gonna spread that damage out. That's what I'm
gonna take 10
negative points.
10 negative points. But yeah, I think that basically sums it up. Is I was satisfied with playing this game.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Satisfying game.
Yes, it met expectations, and so, because I feel the game wasn't trying to, like I said, be the most amazing game, I think it did a great job at that.
Right on. I do want to play it at 2 players because that's granted, not a lot of votes yet. It's fairly new. Technically released in 2017, but really not widespread till now.
Yeah.
It's currently rated best at 2. And so I'd be curious to see like how Megan feels about it. And this could be another solid little fun game for us to play 2 players. And then, like I said, I do think it will be a good one to throw in the bag for game night.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is Pioneer Days. So if after listening to this review, you want to run out and grab yourself a copy, it is widely available on pretty much all of the major online game stores, running right around $40 right now, which
I would say that's a good price for it.
Yeah.
I would say 35 to 45 would be, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't go much above 45. I'd try and stick 40 or less personally, but I could see it's got, like most tasty minstrel games, the component quality is top notch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, easy to find if you want to get it. We didn't have any emails about this particular episode, so Jeff doesn't get to recite the email address just yet. However, there were some PGG responses And by some, I think I mean one.
And one that's not even really related to the game.
So, Zach, why don't you read that one?
This one's from Thomas. He says, ever since I was forced to go to Quesnel, British Columbia during Billy Barker days as an angry teen on a father and son quote-unquote bonding trip, I recoil from anything that seems to resemble the memories of that day. Thanks for yet another reminder of that, you bastards. Wink. No, wait. Yeah, okay. It does. It's an
smiley winky. It's a
it's an
GIF.
it's an animation. So that's why I was like, oh, it doesn't look like a wink. Oh, it now does. Okay. P.S. There may be an email coming to you that to tell the tale of the day fishing on that same. Oh, wait, okay, let me read it. P.S. There may be an email coming to you to tell the tale of the day fishing on that same trip. Oh, what scars it left.
Well,
So I think it's because it's Pioneer Days versus the Billy Barker days. That's what I'm assuming.
yeah, I think that's the. You didn't mention Billy Barker anywhere in your post that I saw.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's a festival that celebrates Gold Rush heritage.
Oh,
Okay. So it's
Sounds
also
about right.
probably
Yeah.
Pioneer Days-esque.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, hopefully we didn't dredge up too many memories of being an angsty teen on that one. But so no questions to answer for fans or listeners. I'm not entirely sure all the listeners are fans. Some of them might spite listen.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Like Andrew.
Download's download.
Yeah.
But if any of you have any follow-up questions or anything about Pioneer Days that we didn't answer in the review, feel free to jump over to the BGG Guild number 2731, where you can jump on that thread and leave us comments, and we'll get to them next week. And by us, I mean Zach and Jeff, because I will not be here next week. Megan and I are going to go have our own Pioneer adventure canoeing in the Tetons. So we will be gone for like 7 days. You can also, if you want to be like Thomas and send us an email about the scars of a family fishing trip back when you were an angsty teen, you can send us that or any other email to our email address.
Emails at milehighgameguys.com.
You can find all three of us over on Twitter, where I tweet under at MHGameGuys. I was going to say all the other ones that I also technically tweet under, but I'm not going to do that.
No. I tweet under only Zach_MHGG,
And I am Jeff_MHGG.
where he only retweets. Because you didn't say it this time, so I figured
No,
somebody had
I didn't
to.
say it last time either.
Yeah, well, I know. That's why I was like, I gotta.
Okay.
Can't let that die.
Yeah.
You can find us also on Facebook and Instagram /MileHighGameGuys. And be sure to go check out punchboardmedia.com, where there are a bunch of other awesome content creators that we have partnered with to spread the word of awesome board gaming content and things of that nature. So jump over to punchboardmedia.com and check all of that out over there. Be sure to tune in next week on Wednesday, where Zach, Jeff, and hopefully a local guest will join them while I'm gone on that camping trip I just mentioned. Then on Friday, there is a surprise episode of Time Stories. Mile High Game Guys ruin Time Stories, Prophecy of Dragons.
A prophecy of
A Prophecy of Dragons. We recorded this last night after playing a 4.5-ish hour game.
Sounds about right, yeah.
It features Megan back on the show. For us, the first time in almost 2 years. For all of you,
Since the last Time Stories episode.
since the last Time Stories episode. This one is actually the first Time Stories episode with really good audio.
With better audio, yes.
With audio.
Yes. Well, the last one had audio.
There was volume.
No, I
It was,
know.
by the strictest legal definition, it had audio.
Yes. And then we will be back after that the following week for our 2 frickin' year anniversary, because we are rapidly approaching 2 years. We don't have anything planned for it because, of course, we don't. That wouldn't be our style to plan ahead.
No.
But we might do a surprise giveaway or something. So be sure to stay tuned over the next couple weeks.
I'm sure you'll get that all planned in the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yes.
While
And
you're in the Tetons.
while I'm in the Tetons, and then I come back from the Tetons, and before we even record the 2-year anniversary, prior to the 2-year anniversary, I guess, actually,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to be at Origins.
Yep.
Basically, I get back Tuesday night from my camping trip. I fly out Wednesday afternoon for Origins. I fly back Sunday night, record Monday, the 2-year anniversary. It's about to be another 2-week whirlwind for me, kind of like Geekway and HeavyCon was. Hopefully, I don't get sick.
I mean, I'll go ahead and tease something. I know at the very least we're going to play more Win, Lose, or Banana on
Yes.
the 2-year.
Yes. Win, lose, banana. But if you're at Origins, feel free to get a hold of me. All those contact information before. Find me on Twitter, whatever. Send us an email. But I will be at Origins. So I'll be working the Deepwater Games booth. So feel free to stop by, check out some of their stuff. Come by, say hi to me. I'll be at both the Heavy Cardboard meetup, which I believe is Saturday night. I'll be at the Punchboard Media meetup on Friday night. And likely drinking every single moment I can when I'm not working at the booth.
Sounds about right.
So, yeah, find me. Come say hi. Maybe play a game. That wraps it all up. That's this week with a bow tie. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hope you've all enjoyed the episode. As always, I have been your host, Adrian.
I am still Zach.
And I'm Wiley Jeff.
I like it.
Like a gold miner.
No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
All right.
Not like Coyote.
Bye.
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 I just tried to Google cost and availability. Like it was just gonna no.
You just Google cost and availability and that's it?
Yeah.
Nice.
I started to type it in. I caught myself before I hit enter. The next time I am on the show in 2 weeks will be episode 100, our 2 freaking year anniversary.
I mean, he's also going to be on the next week's episode of Time
technically.
Stories.
Technically. I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
Punchboard Media,
where we all
bring something
to the table.
Pull up a chair
At punchboardmedia.com.